Evolution of Superstars in Wrestling Games, Eddie Guerrero Edition. Eddie Guerrero made his unofficial debut in Super Fire Pro Wrestling Special, which was released on the Super Famicom in December 1994, marking his debut in the 4th generation of consoles. For this unofficial debut, he was known as Black Kaiser, which is a spin on his Black Tiger Mask gimmick. In this game, he does not have an entrance, but he does spin his finger, which is pretty cool. And then in a lot of these Japanese games, there are no finishers, but he does have signatures, which includes the Tornado DDT and the Sit-Down Crucifix Powerbomb. Then his first official appearance was in Shin Nippon Pro Wrestling 95 Tokyo Dome Battle 7, and that was released on the Super Famicom in June 1995. Not only did this mark his first official game, this was also his first ever appearance in a New Japan Pro Wrestling game. There he donned his Black Tiger Mask gimmick, and he has a cool-ass entrance to boot. Then again, he has no real finishers, but for signatures, he still has the Tornado DDT and the Sit-Down Crucifix Powerbomb. Then his next game was Gekito Burning Pro Wrestling, which was also released on the Super Famicom in October 1995, this time with the name Darkness Sauza. And in this game, there are no entrances, and for a signature, he has a couple variations of the Sit-Down Crucifix Powerbomb, which, by the way, I should note was also known as the Black Tiger Bomb. Then he returned in another Super Fire Pro Wrestling game, this time Super Fire Pro Wrestling X, which was also released on the Super Famicom in December 1995. It's once again an unofficial appearance, so he is known as Black Kaiser. There again are no entrances, but he does adjust his non-existent wristbands. And this time for his signature, I only captured his Sit-Down Crucifix Powerbomb. And then he returns in another official appearance, this time at Virtual Pro Wrestling, which was released in September 1996 for the PlayStation 1, which also marks his debut for this 5th generation of consoles. Additionally, with this being his debut on the 5th generation of consoles, it's also his very first 3D appearance. For this, he still dons the name Black Tiger Mask. Again, there are no entrances, but he still is able to spin his finger. And then this game doesn't really have signatures, but I would still like to point out that he still has that Sit-Down Crucifix Powerbomb, but for his real finisher, it's a Hurricane Rana pinning combination. Then again, he's going to return to Fire Pro Wrestling, this time Fire Pro Wrestling 6-Man Scramble, which was released in December 1996 for the Sega Saturn. Once again, donning the name Black Kaiser, he returns with a big entrance now, but he's still sure to spin that finger. And then for signatures, we still have the Sit-Down Crucifix Powerbomb, but we introduced the Brain Buster. And then in February 1997, he appeared in WCW vs. the World, which was released for the PlayStation 1, which marks his very first WCW appearance and marks the very first time he was finally referred to as Eddie Guerrero, though it's spelled with a Y instead of I-E. And then again, these aren't his real signatures, but I would still like to point them out, that he has the Sit-Down Crucifix Powerbomb, the Brain Buster, and a Crucifix Powerbomb off the top rope. And despite having all those cool moves, his finisher is still just a Hurricane Rana into a pinning combination. And then he's going to return again in WCW vs. NWO World Tour, which was released in November 1997, and this marked his very first N64 appearance. And in this game, he is again just known as Eddie Guerrero. He has no entrance, but he does raise his arms up very high. And for finishers, he just has his Sit-Down Crucifix Powerbomb. And then his next game was Virtual Pro Wrestling 64, which was released in December 1997, again for the N64. He's still known as Eddie Guerrero, and then for his finisher, he still has that Sit-Down Crucifix Powerbomb. In addition to that finisher, he has a Pinning Dragon Suplex. And then his next game was WCW Nitro, which was released in January 1998 for the N64, PlayStation 1, and PC. He's still known as Eddie Guerrero, and then for his finisher, this marks the debut of the Frog Splash as his finisher. And then his next game was New Japan Pro Wrestling Tokan Retsuden 3, which was released in March 1998 for the PlayStation 1. This also marks his final New Japan Pro Wrestling game, and his final official appearance as Black Tiger Mask. In this game, he does have a cool entrance where he slowly trots down to the ring. Look at him go. So for this game, it doesn't really have signatures or finishers. It has golden combos where if you do certain moves into each other, it does bonus damage. And in this game, his golden combos are a back suplex into a sit-down crucifix powerbomb, a brain buster into the frog splash, and a pump handle drop into a tope atomico. And then returning to WCW, this time we have WCW vs. NWO Revenge, which was released in October 1998 for the N64, where he is once again known as Eddie Guerrero. And I'm going to stop bringing that up because besides the unofficial releases, he is known as Eddie Guerrero for the rest of his career. I'll mention it when we get to the unofficial games, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But anyways, for his finishers, he still has that sit-down crucifix powerbomb, and a rolling German suplex into a pin. And then his next game was WCW Thunder, released in December 1998 for the PlayStation 1, where he once again has the Frog Splash as his finisher. This is also the first game to feature his actual WCW theme song. But then we gotta jump back to Fire Pro Wrestling, this time Fire Pro Wrestling G, which was released in June 1999 for the PlayStation 1, where he once again dons the Black Kaiser name. And this also marks the final appearance of Black Tiger in any variety. He once again has a long entrance, complete with finger spin, and then for his signature, he still has the sit-down crucifix powerbomb, the brainbuster, but for Fire Pro, they finally added the Frog Splash. And then we gotta jump over to WCW Mayhem, which was released December 1999 from the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation 1, which also marks his final WCW game, complete with entrance with his WCW theme song. And for that, his finisher is a Hurricane Rana. And then we gotta jump over to WWF No Mercy, which was released November 2000, which marks his very first WWF game. Additionally, because this is his first WWE game, it also marks the first game where his name is spelled with an I-E. Oh, and needless to say, it's for the Nintendo 64. His entrance music is Latino Heat, and then for his finisher, he has the sit-down crucifix powerbomb. The next game was SmackDown 2, which was also released in November 2000, but it was released 3 days after No Mercy. And this time it's for the PlayStation 1. But his entrance is still Latino Heat, and his finisher in this game is the Frog Splash. And then we gotta jump all the way back to Fire Pro Wrestling D, which was released in March 2001 for the Sega Dreamcast, which also marks his debut on the 6th generation of consoles. And this also marks a game where he was officially known in the Fire Pro series as the Mexican Terry Novello. This game has a full entrance, and then for his signatures, he has a pinning Hurricane Rana and the Frog Splash. And then we actually gotta jump over to Fire Pro Wrestling, which was also released in March 2001, and actually released on the same day as Fire Pro Wrestling D in Japan. It was released a month later in the United States. This also marks his first non-official appearance on any kind of handheld system, but he is once again known as the Mexican Terry Novello. In this game, he has a full entrance, and for moves, I recorded him doing the sit-down crucifix powerbomb and the Frog Splash. Staying on handhelds, we're gonna jump over to WWF Road to WrestleMania, which was released in November 2001. I guess this marks his first official debut on any kind of handheld, and for his entrance music, he still has Latino Heat, and for his finisher, he still has the sit-down crucifix powerbomb. And then we gotta jump over to SmackDown Just Bring It, which was also released in November 2001, just 1 day after Road to WrestleMania. And this game is of course for the PlayStation 2 and marks his first game for the PlayStation 2. And for his entrance music, he still has Latino Heat, and then for his finisher, he still has the Frog Splash, but he adds El Paso as one of his finishers.
Let's get to it. There they go. Just stop it. The ring will be filled with drama tonight.
And then we're gonna head on over to WWF Raw, which was released in February 2002 and marks his debut on the Microsoft series of consoles. But for this game, he still has his entrance as Latino Heat, and his finisher is still a Frog Splash. And then we're gonna head over back to the Game Boy for Fire Pro Wrestling 2, which was released July 2002, where he once again dons the unofficial name, the Mexican Terry Novello, and then for his signatures, he still has that sit-down crucifix powerbomb and a Frog Splash. Alright, and now we got SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, which was released in November 2002 for the PlayStation 2, where he still has the theme song Latino Heat, and he still has the finishers El Paso and Frog Splash. And then we're gonna head over to his first official appearance that's not associated with any major wrestling company, Legends of Wrestling 2, which was also released in November 2002, just 2 weeks after SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. And for this, he just has some mariachi music, and then his finisher is the Frog Splash. Then we gotta head back to WWE, because he also appeared in WrestleMania 19, which was released September 2003, and marks his first game on the Nintendo GameCube. For there, he still has its entrance music as Latino Heat, and he has a fuck ton of finishers. He has the Tiger Suplex, Sit-Down Crucifix Powerbomb, Frog Splash, El Paso, and it marks the debut of the Lasso from El Paso finisher. And then we gotta go over to WWF Raw 2, which was released in September 2003 for the Xbox. Still donning the entrance music Latino heat, and then for finishers, he has the Brainbuster and a pinning German suplex. But then we gotta head back to the PlayStation 2 for SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, which was released October 2003. This also marks the first game where he actually has an overall, with an overall of 74. Surprisingly bad start. For his entrance music, he actually switches his song in this game to Viva la Raza, and that actually stays his theme song for the rest of his career, so I'm going to stop bringing it up unless it's different for some reason. Additionally, in this game, he is the default United States champion, and this actually is the only game where he's a default champion, surprisingly enough. But for finishers, he has the Frog Splash and the Lasso from El Paso. Then we gotta jump over to another Legends of Wrestling game, this time Showdown Legends of Wrestling, which was released June 2004 for the Xbox and PlayStation 2. Again, for this one, he has some mariachi music, and his finisher is the Frog Splash.
Going up. What an amazing display of agility.
And he also has the Reverse Gory Special. And then we're gonna head over back to the GameCube, this time for Day of Reckoning, which was released August 2004. In this game, he has an overall of 89, and for finishers, he has the Frog Splash, Three Amigos, and a Tiger Suplex. And then we gotta head over to his final Game Boy game, which was Survivor Series, which was released October 2004. For this, I know I said I wouldn't bring it up, but his entrance song is Viva la Raza, but it's MIDI. And for his finishers, he has the Frog Splash and the Three Amigos. So, now we're gonna jump back to the PlayStation 2, this time for SmackDown vs. Raw, which was released in November 2004. There he has an overall of 88, and his finishers are still the Lasso from El Paso and the Frog Splash. But after that, we gotta head on over to his final original Xbox game appearance, WrestleMania 21, which was released in April 2005. In this one, he has an overall of 80, and his finisher is just the Frog Splash. And then, we gotta head on over to his final standalone mobile game appearance, WWE Aftershock for the Nokia N-Gage, which was released in early August 2005. For this, his finisher is just the Frog Splash. And then we gotta head on over to his final GameCube game, Day of Reckoning 2, which was also released in August 2005, but it was much later in the month. In that, he has an overall of 90, and his finishers are the Frog Splash, the El Paso, and the Lasso from El Paso. And then we're gonna head on over to the WWE Plug and Play game, which was actually released the same day as Day of Reckoning 2. So if you're a kid and your birthday was around that day, you either had a really great birthday or a pretty shitty one. For this, he doesn't really have an entrance, it's just some generic MIDI, and his finisher is the Frog Splash. But then we gotta head over to SmackDown vs. Raw 2006, which was released November 2005 for the PlayStation 2 and the PSP. In this, he has an overall of 89, and his finishers are the Lasso from El Paso and the Frog Splash. Additionally, very important note about this game, it is the final game to feature Eddie Guerrero while he was still alive, as, unfortunately, he passed away just 2 days after this game was released. And then we're going to head over to SmackDown vs. Raw 2007, which was released November 2006 for the PlayStation 2. It also marks his debut on the 7th generation of consoles, being released on the Xbox 360. In this, his overall is 90, and his finishers are still the Lasso from El Paso and the Frog Splash. And then we're going to head over to WWE All-Stars, which was released March 2011. For this, his finisher is just the Frog Splash. And then he finally makes a return to the mainline WWE games with WWE 12, which was released November 2011. In this, he has an overall of 92. In this, his signature is the Three Amigos, and for finishers, he has the Brainbuster and the Frog Splash. But then we gotta go back to another non-official appearance, this time in Wrestling Revolution 2D. And yes, I'm aware that he appeared in the other free MDickie games, but I'm only including the ones you can buy on Steam, alright? Fair enough, cool. And in this game, he is known as S.A. Kara, and is the default light heavyweight champion for the Super Lucha Libre promotion, and his finisher is the Brainbuster. Alright, but then we gotta go back to WWE games with WWE 13, which was released November 2012. And importantly, in WWE 13, it also marks the return of his theme song, Latino Heat. In this, he has an overall of 93, his signature is the Three Amigos, and he adds the Brainbuster, and then for finishers, he has the Frog Splash and the Lasso from El Paso. And then we're gonna go to WWE 14, where he still has an overall of 92, and then additionally in WWE 14, they maintain the theme song Latino Heat. And then for signatures, he still has the Brain Buster and the Three Amigos, and for finishers, he still has the Frog Splash and the Lasso from El Paso. But then we gotta go back to that good old M. Dickey for Wrestling Revolution 3D, which was released in October 2014, where he is still known as S.A. Kara, and he is still the default light heavyweight champion for the Super Lucha Libre promotion, and for this, his finisher is still the Brain Buster. And then he takes a little break from WWE games and returns in WWE 2K17, which was released in October 2016 and also marks his debut on the 8th generation of consoles. And then when he returns in this game, he also returns with the Viva La Raza theme song. In this, he has an overall of 90, and his signatures are the Brain Buster and the Three Amigos. And his finishers are the Frog Splash and the Lasso from El Paso. And then he's going to come back again in WWE 2K18, which was released October 2017. There, his overall goes up to 91, and his signatures are the Brain Buster and the Three Amigos, and his finishers are the Frog Splash and the Lasso from El Paso. And then he appears again in WWE 2K19, which was released in October 2018. His overall is 89, and then his signatures are still the Brain Buster and the Three Amigos, and his finisher is still the Frog Splash and the Lasso from El Paso. And then he returns again in WWE 2K20, which was released in October 2019, where he still has an overall of 89, and for signatures, he still has the Brain Buster and the Three Amigos, and for finishers, he still has the Frog Splash and the Lasso from El Paso. And then he is also in WWE 2K Battlegrounds, which was released in September 2020. There, he has an overall of 91, and his finisher is just the Frog Splash. And then we're going to go back to another M. Dickey game, this time Wrestling Empire, which was released in January 2021. There, he still has the name S.A. Kara, but for finishers, he has the Codebreaker and the Dragon Suplex. And then we're going to go to WWE 2K22, which was released March 2022, and marks his debut on the 9th generation of consoles. There, he has an overall of 90, and his signatures are the Brain Buster and the Three Amigos, and his finisher is the Frog Splash and the Lasso from El Paso. But that's not all, because he's featured a second time in this game, which is Eddie Guerrero 97, who has an overall slightly lower at 87, and we see a return to the theme song Latino Heat. And then for signatures, we finally see a return to the sit-down crucifix powerbomb, and we also see the gory special. And then for his finisher, he just has the Frog Splash. And then we're gonna go to WWE 2K23, which was released in March 2023. There, he has an overall of 90, and his signatures are still the Brain Buster and the Three Amigos, and his finishers are still the Frog Splash and the Lasso from El Paso. And then Eddie Guerrero 97 also returning with an 87 overall, and still maintaining the Latino Heat theme song. And in this one, his signatures are the sit-down crucifix powerbomb, and his finisher is just the Frog Splash. And then lastly, in WWE 2K24, which was released in March 2024, he returns, and this time still maintaining a 90 overall, and still having the Brain Buster and Three Amigos as his signatures, and for his finishers, he still has the Frog Splash and the Lasso from El Paso. And then lastly, he also has another version in this game, still Eddie Guerrero 97. For some reason, his overall dropped to 76. I don't know how the fuck that happened. Theme song, he still has Latino Heat, and for signatures, he still has the sit-down crucifix powerbomb and the gory special. And for finishers, he has a Frog Splash, and they gave him a Brain Buster. Oh god, that was a lot. So, overall, throughout all of this, we saw 6 different versions of Eddie Guerrero. He appeared in 6 generations of consoles. He appeared on a total of 23 consoles, and he appeared in a total of 52 video games. God damn. Needless to say, a historical amount of appearances for one of the best to ever do it. Whew. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if I missed a game, I'm really sorry. I did my best. I hope you guys appreciated the video nonetheless. I'll see you later. Bye.